Okay. A couple of exciting announcements. One, we got in the mail, we got approved for a loan from PayPal. That's pretty cool. It's mind-blowing how many loans we get approved for when you register a business.
So many.
So many loans. We are going to go through some. Do you feel like we should get started?
Yeah.
You want to do it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. We're going to get rolling. Today's going to be abbreviated. Not abbreviated. That's the wrong word. We're going to do an intensive overview at a high level, and then we're going to come back and go through each piece kind of bit by bit. So the goal of today, the new capsule is all about creating content and getting content made. And we talked about writing a lot. That seems to be a big thing people get stuck with, or getting their photos taken, or, just coming up with the right type of content that they need to make. And so what we wanted to do is help connect the dots between some of our previous conversations about branding, who's your audience for, and then connect to the getting more customers or more clients kind of sales strategy conversations that we had, and then also connect to kind of how we get content made. So it's a little bit of like a summary synopsis combining of the past 3 capsules that have gone out. So excited about this, excited to connect all the dots. We're going to kind of gloss over a lot of things. A lot of these things are available in more detail in a specific capsule. So if you go back through that, or if you have other questions, you can always ask, leave a comment here, or tweet to us probably, and we'll pay attention and listen. Does that sound good?
Yep.
You're like a little quiet today, so I'm curious of what you're thinking.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just excited.
Okay. Cool.
This is like stuff that I also have to learn.
Yeah. This is stuff that it took a long time for you to not have your eyes glaze over.
Yeah. I'm just preparing to not glaze.
I remember you hated spreadsheets until Mike Albert was very fast inside of them. Mm-hmm. And it's impressive. Okay. So we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go through these. I also have a link. Should I share the link now?
To the thing?
No, we'll go through it, and then I'll share a link at the end of all of this in the comments. Kate loves a spreadsheet, so I'm into.
I'm not quite there yet, Kate, but I'm getting closer.
Not quite there. Share my screen. Application window. Let's do that one. Awesome. Let me know if this is not visible or viewable. But we'll start off with, actually, we're not going to start there. We're going to start here. So I have a specific document for that we'll share with everybody after today's webinar that they can make a copy of and go forward on their own. So hopefully these things are readable. Maybe I need to zoom in a little bit. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Okay. So this first sheet, so there's one workbook and then multiple sheets inside of the workbook. And the whole idea is to go from those high-level branding conversations and to be able to dive into content creation and advertising planning, so that we know that the things that we're making and the stuff that we're doing is smart and on purpose. And we want to, as quickly as we can, get into
1 second, keep on.
As quickly as we can, we want to get into the actual creative piece of this. I know we have a lot of designers, and it's hard to read. How's that? Is that better? Trying to make sure that we're good for all eye sensitivities here. So what we want to do is we want to get the designers and writers and creative people who are inside of this, inside of the membership. We want them to be able to know that what they're doing is important and correct and the right thing to be doing, but also to focus on creating the actual content and focus about being a great writer or communicating with your audience or designing or photographing the things that need photographed. It doesn't always help. When we're in the middle of a photo shoot here, we're not sitting around and we're not going through the high level conversations. We've already done all of that before we get into the act of creating. And so what I'm trying to do a little bit is to separate out each of those pieces so that we can show up and create the stuff that we need to. So this first page is an audience focus. This example that I'll go through today is for my coffee company, Art of Coffee, which is a fledgling, hopefully successful someday type of coffee company. So the first thing to understand is who is that audience for, which I have outlined at the very beginning, very tip top of that segment. So this is for people who love coffee, who care about what tastes great, but then also care about the day-to-day actions of their life and trajectory of those small actions. So Ardor, I want it to be about a ritual and about a daily ritual to prepare you for your day. That's kind of why it's called Ardor. It's why it exists from my perspective. And so I want it to connect with those type of people. I want to have those type of conversations. So when we go through the list of questions that people have at each stage, so you can see across the left side of this document, I've outlined those 6 stages that we use in the more clients in our sales funnel. So we have strangers. What kind of questions do they have? Number one question strangers almost always have is this cool and is this for me? Then we have on the next column right next to it, we can write out our brand answers. So how do we respond to that? And then how do we show that? So we've talked about this before, but showing versus telling. How can we show and demonstrate that we're cool versus say that we're cool? Just like someone who's actually funny doesn't need to tell people that she is funny. She can just be funny. So how do we demonstrate all of that? And then where do those things actually need to live? Because that makes a huge difference. So we're going to live inside of ads. It's going to live inside of social media content. It's going to live on our website. So testimonials and artistic photography. This is I've gone through this brand enough in my head to know these are the answers that I'll come up with. There's probably other things that you could do. There's other correct answers for this, but I want you to just come up with your own. So when we go through and we talk about the engaged audience, we want the questions that they have. So what are some more details? How do they understand more about the coffee? And is this actually as cool as I thought it was? Like, does the promise of the brand, does the ethos of the brand pass through? And so some of the brand answers is I'll give details about selling so they can understand that that's part of it only sells to an email list. It only sells to it's an exclusive type of product. How do we share this? Through our copy. And again, we're going to do testimonials here. We're going to have testimonials all over the place. It's going to be an answer for everything. And then where do we show this? We show this on the site, social, and then in the email content for our subscribers or people who subscribe but haven't yet purchased yet, but they're just curious. So we want to make sure that those questions are answered every time that we put something out, because that's what those people care about. And then we can kind of just go down the line. What kind of questions? What are people interested in? The people who are interested, they started demonstrating buying behaviors. They're going to be curious about shipping. They're going to be curious about Athena's in here. Hi. They're going to be curious about what else would people be curious about right before they're about to buy coffee?
Maybe like best way to make it, like how to use it.
Right. Can I make this? So when I share my coffee with people or talk to them about it, or when I make it for them at the studio, one of their first reactions is almost always, oh, I can't make it like this. I just have a crappy coffee maker, or I just have a Keurig. So they don't think it's possible. So how does our brand answer this? We can educate people. We're going to do this via video, and we're going to do this via shipping. Details. This is all just, yeah. Where are we going to show this? Again, we're going to show this as site, social, and then email content. So it's going to be the same place.
Like a download. You could have like how to
brew this. Yeah.
Choose which way you make coffee, and then you can download then you have a specific segmented list that's just people who use like AeroPress.
Yep. Killer. So this is all, as we're going through this list together, you can already see how we can start. We're on the fringe of having interesting content creation ideas, but by going through this, we know that the ideas that we have or the places that we focus are going to be what we actually end up doing. Yeah. So questions that people have when they first purchase are going to be, how do I make this? I know this because people ask, how long does it last? So people buy 7 ounces of coffee and they're like, how long does 7 ounces or 9 ounces last? Nobody knows. But they just want that. How do I use this? How do I make the most of it? How do I keep it fresh? Oh, I typoed there. Thank you.
You didn't typo, really. It's just excluded the word.
So we're going to continue to educate about brewing and how do we show this. We're going to do more video. And I want to create a really tight graphic, illustration is a better word. An illustration of how to make it. Maybe like an infographic of some kind that just really is very simple. It would give my recommended ratios, places to get started, what type of things I used when I was just getting started in coffee and I wasn't sure.
I think we see a lot of people in this entire content brainstorm thinking about, well, like everyone else does it this way, or I don't have like a specific, I don't know, like specialization. I think they're afraid to put out content. Like you said, like my favorite way to make the coffee. And so many people are like, well, there's so many people out there that know more than I do. And they get caught up in that. Oh, like,
yeah. There's
comparison.
I think of it, I get stuck with that sometimes. And so the best thing I do is, I think you mentioned this inside of the Facebook group, but is I stopped following almost all of the coffee accounts because there are so many people who you can pay like $35 for an online course that teaches you almost everything you would ever need to know about doing things at home. And if you just look at that, you're like, well, I don't need to do that anymore. But I would go about it in a very different way than the guy does who does it.
Or I think like if I was on your website trying to buy from you, like any of you who are watching, the resource that you're afraid to put out because you feel like it's been done before, I'm not going to go find it elsewhere. Like I'm on your website right now. So if you are a coach or if you are a designer, I'm doing this mostly because the two people that I know who are watching for sure are those things. If I was like trying to figure out if collaborating with you was a good idea and I had questions, I'm not going to go seek those answers elsewhere. Most likely. And if I do, I'm like gone. Yeah. You know?
So the question someone might have when they buy their second purchase. So how do I share about this? They want to know, does this make me look cool? Can I brag about it? Is there any benefit to that? And how much should I buy? People ask me that a lot. Where they're like, oh, I need this to last for 5 weeks. How much should I buy? And then I'll ask them how much they make. I will reverse. I need to create like a download planning tool for like, I drink this much coffee, so this is a good idea. Let's do this. So how much? So let's just focus in on that. We can talk about buying coffee. Like how do we show this? So we're going to put a downloadable guide. Ooh, maybe we could do a spreadsheet and it could like almost automate the whole thing. We could get a tool. We could do that on our site. That would be, so it's going to be on the website and we're going to show people be like, I drink 3 cups of coffee. I drink between 1 to 3 cups of coffee a day. So you should buy X number of packs. Yeah. If you make it this certain type of way.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sweet. We could definitely do this. So this is where we start to come up with ideas. So I'm going to go over to my content planning idea. We're going to put
you're sharing this.
Yeah, you'll see all of this. I'm going to keep some of those ideas. We're going to pass them through as we get into actually production schedule and calendar. So as we get into VIPs, what do they care about? How do I maximize this? They always want to know that. And am I in a club? So people want to know that. So we just have some special promotions for them to keep them ordering. We could have some kind of like member benefit for people who are top customers. It'd be no problem. Yeah. How do we show that? We're going to do that through text messages because I set that up for all of our VIPs. And then also events. We're going to actually have events at our studio for our best top customers and advocates. And then where do we show this off at? This comes in our packaging. This comes into
member event.
Yeah.
Could be like some sort of souvenir.
Physical
souvenir.
I spell it wrong.
I have no idea how to spell souvenir. I always wait for it to autocorrect.
We'll just move on to the next sheet here quick, so then we don't have to think about it too much. You can see how we kind of go through this pretty quickly. A lot of this content, a lot of what's in this sheet is something that we should have thought about before. This is really just getting us thinking about our audience, thinking about who they are, thinking about what we care about. As we get through, one of the things that's missing from this sheet, and somebody could maybe improve it. Thanks. Just you're cleaning up my. One of the things that's missing from this sheet is some of those brand kind of pillars or DNA or kind of your like attitude or swagger about how you do the stuff that you do. That's not in here yet. This is really focusing in on the audience. You should come up with some things your brand stands for, a tone, like your voice, all of those things. And then as you're creating things, make sure that that's infused throughout all of it. So the way that we answer a question about shipping can have all of that woven into how we talk about the things that we talk about. Yeah. And that's how, even though there's probably a lot of coffee brands that could go through all of this and have almost the same answers as me, they're not going to have the same voice and the same way they talk about things. So the next thing we want to jump into is we want to jump into advertising planning. So we talk about this a little bit. So as you go through the Diamond membership, how many things do I have to sell worksheet that Mike Albert made for us in the getting more customers and clients. Actually, I can show you where that is. Yeah, it's over in here. So if you go to the more clients, more customers, it's under the setting your growth goals. And if you click on this link, clicking here, it's going to open up a new window. It's going to show you some updates. So this is a view only version of the document, but if you go to file, we're not signed in. If we go to file and then hit make a copy, and now we've made our own copy. We're going to call this Art of Coffee. And now we're here. So we first spent all of our time in the thinking about our audience. Now we're going to start thinking about our own business goals. And you can sit down and kind of do all of this on a Saturday or in an afternoon or in a morning when you have some time, or an evening, and go through and start to fill all of these out. I would encourage you to go through almost all of this in one big sitting. And then you can jump through and do that in, every quarter you can go through and update it or something like that. Mm-hmm. So product price, I'm going to double the price of my coffee here pretty soon, but I'm also going to double the size. And so you can see my product price right now is at $18. It takes $7 of goods, meaning packaging, boxes, coffee inside of that to make the whole thing. That's not including labor that it takes to make all of that. That's just raw goods. So you can see that my gross margin per bag is $11, which is a 61% gross margin. Congratulations to me. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make you, you're like, cool.
You're rich.
Yeah. So as I go through my expenses, these are some below the line assumptions. I have sales and marketing expenses. I put at $400. We're going to update that probably in a little bit. How much does it cost for us to take up space? We go through software expenses. All of this Mike goes through in more detail in the capsule, so I'd encourage you to go through all of that. Excuse me. And then if you have another tab here at the bottom where you can go if you have a service business. So it's basically the same thing from product to service business, but product business is just a little cleaner to calculate. Mm-hmm. So you can see that my goal is to sell 1,000 units in this first period. So we're going to call this in the first month. Although that would be a gigantic amount of growth for me. So let's do this. Let's say period 1 is kind of my goal. Let's say period 2 is when I'm still roasting stuff out of my garage. So my payroll expense is 0 because I don't pay anybody. Sales and marketing expense, we'll keep it the same. Occupancy expense is 0 because I don't charge myself rent. Software expense has, I have some various things. Office supplies, various things.
Do you want to keep your payroll at $5,000 for the first period?
Yeah, for the first one I will. So I'm not going to do this as periods. I'm going to do this as 2 separate examples. So as we get over here on the document, we can see that in period 1, it's not actually period 1. It's our whole example. And then I'm going to put period 2, we're going to put realistic. Here's a realistic example. We can see that if I sell 1,000 units, total revenue, total gross sold, we have $11,000 of margin. So we made $11,000. Now I have to subtract that from all of my operating expenses, or I have to subtract my operating expenses from that number. So I'm going to take out the 5,000, and I end up with $4,000 per month of profit operating, which is cool. So our business profits that much. In my $5,000 a month of payroll expenses, I'm paying people, I'm hiring people. That's all cool. I'm into that. And then I just get like $4,000 a month off of all of their really hard work, which sounds great. The realistic example, total revenue is definitely not going to be that high. It's going to be like I'm selling. Oh, I shouldn't change the stock. It auto updates. Oh, yeah. So let's say I sell 100 bags.
You should change what's green.
Yeah, only change the things that are green. Let everything else be its own. So put this. You see our goal here. I'm messing with this because as we go through and plan our advertising, you're going to be glad that we put a realistic and a target scenario together. Mm-hmm. So you can see if I sell 100 bags, so that's a tenth of that. I don't have any physical space. I'm probably doing it mildly illegally. No one in here is part of the FDA, so I'm fine. Mildly, there's probably some like health and safety food things that I'm avoiding. And so you can see I'm doing $1,800 in revenue and only $700 of total costs of goods sold. So I'm profiting $1,000. 8 is secretly, yeah. If anyone is part of the FDA, let me know. I'll refund you your. We have a number of people who are food-related businesses, and as I've talked to them, I realized that not everyone's like following 100% of the laws all the time. And it's difficult to know if you are following the laws. It's a confusing thing. Anyway, so we get into this. We're at $1,000 of gross margin. Our expenses are a lot less. So our profit is going to be $500. I'm cool making $500 a month of pure profit selling 100 bags of coffee every month. Mm-hmm. Not a problem. That would be great growth. That'd be better than what I'm doing now.
But in this situation, you're also probably doing it yourself because your payroll expenses are at that.
Yes, definitely. So we can just see what those are. My profit actually is higher, like my percentage of profit, but I'm not paying myself. So so you figure out, you have to figure out all of those things. I just want to put that in there. So go through and do this. If you haven't yet, go through the this module back in the Getting More Customers capsule and come up with your own answers. Mm-hmm. For a lot of you, I know that when we do this, you can be a little bit like, oh my gosh, I have to sell a lot of stuff to make the money I need to make, which is why you can understand why certain restaurants, your favorite local chain restaurant or local restaurant that opened a second, a third, and fourth, and fifth, and 10th location, like you can start to understand why you need to grow.
Or like you talk about how you worked at a restaurant and they're like, you need to give people 3 napkins instead of 50.
So, yeah, we had like a lecture on number of napkins. It's at TGI Friday, so quality place. But all of that adds up, and you can kind of learn how it adds up here. So if you're at a baby kind of part of your business, it's okay to just estimate this stuff. Make sure you get it close, knowing that your target goal isn't what's going to happen next month. Just because I put 1,000 bags on there doesn't mean I'm going to sell 1,000 bags next month. I could sell 100, I think, if I worked hard.
I mean, this might be like Adam and I have very different brains, but I all of a sudden start thinking, if I can get one person to buy 6 bags based on that downloadable tool that we make where people figure out, I drink this much coffee, I definitely need to buy more than 1 bag, that changes your marketing. Like if you start thinking, if each customer, instead of just buying 1 thing, can buy 4, that makes that number.
Yeah. So what if I only sold, right now I have $9 bags. So you can see if we have $9 bags. If I have a $9 bag and my cost of goods is actually even worse than this. So
actually, Kate, I don't think Adam has a picture of him in his Fridays gear. I wish he did.
Oh man, yeah. I wish I had. I should. I had some solid. I had someday for like Halloween. Maybe I'll go through as like my Friday self. I had some cool.
That would be neat.
I'd say I had a cool get up.
Did you?
I thought so.
I don't think I even ever saw you wearing that.
Yeah.
I avoided being with him in public.
So you can just see those things. Those things just definitely change. If you're selling multiple products, you have to think through. If I sell one type of product, maybe Arter starts selling coffee making supplies or something else. We got to add that into our business as well. A lot of people want to just blank when they get to this spreadsheet, but you
can't.
You have to do it. It's your business, and someday you'll be showing up pissed off because you're not making enough money, and it's because you're not planning. Allie and I worked our butts off for like 3 years and did a really good job and didn't plan anything financially, and we would keep getting to spots where we were very frustrated. Yeah. And it was just because we weren't paying attention.
Well, what I was going to say too is for the service-based business, we would do this. Like you can see, there's a bunch of different types of services.
Yeah.
And so it forced us to even break down like how are we handling each of these.
Yeah. How many websites can we do in a month? How many photo shoots can we do in a month? All of that stuff. So we're going to keep those numbers. So we have 1,000, so we have 1,000 and 100 as my two kind of benchmark numbers. We're going to get into this next sheet that I have is called advertising planning. And so all you need to do is really update update this green number. So if we say we have 1,000 sales, then it's going to go through and it's going to automatically update something. Going to automatically update the target number of followers you have. We use that. We've gone through this a number of times. But if you haven't seen any of our other videos, we talk often about a 1% conversion rate. And so you can imagine this as we need 1,000 people to come through the funnel. Now we need 100 times as many people as followers, and we need 100 times as many of people as that for our advertising to reach.
So 1% gets you to like the next part of the funnel.
Yeah, correct. So as we think through that number, we have a goal number of sales is 1,000, or we can say 100. It's going to change dramatically. We can see that if our goal number of sales for coffee is just 100 bags of coffee, I want to have 10,000 followers, which is a lot to go from where I am now, but it's something that we can start working on. And then we need to be in front of 1 million people, which is a lot of people, but very doable. And this is for planning purposes, not for you have to quit your business you have to quit your business if you're not hitting these numbers. You can have a larger than 1% conversion rate for sure. That's normal. It's typical. There's probably people in here who have a higher than 1% conversion rate, especially when you're a small business. If people make a connection with you, you're going to be very personal and you're going to be very warm, and people like connecting with people. So you're going to be able to, for every person that you talk to about your services and you meet one-on-one, you're going to have a higher than 1% conversion rate. This is just for planning purposes. So, and understand that you just need to have incremental goals. If I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers, that's a ton. I think I probably have like 173 right now, or 200. I have 200 emails. I guess followers, we should think about that as well. That would be a combined number of email addresses, Instagram followers, Twitter followers, whatever, Facebook followers. I probably have 400 right now for the coffee business at the time of this recording. And so if I made my goal to grow 1,000 every month, it'd be at the end of the year. I'd be at the spot that I want to be at. Yeah. And because I'm a small business, I'm going to have a higher than average conversion rate on that. So the 1% is not going to be true there. So I went through already in the upcoming capsule, in next month's capsule, we're going to really focus in on the nitty gritty, very, very annoyingly specific pieces of advertising, especially online, and how to think through Facebook, Twitter, Google, Pinterest ads, anything sponsoring blogs, things like that. We're going to work through all of that stuff because it's the number one thing I get questions on as I'm talking to Diamond members. And so for our planning purposes, I went through and I did some basic estimates about how I could get in front of people for money, like how much money it would take for me to get in front of this amount of people. And so I went through Facebook and I built a target audience group of 90,000 people, built a Twitter advertising target audience group of 30,000 people. Google Ads, I can hit a lot more because it's just targeting people who are searching for, coffee or home coffee brewing methods or things like that. So I can pay to be in front of them. Farmers markets, that's always a strategy that I will do eventually when I want to, is to get in front of new people locally, is go show up at farmers markets and pop-ups and collaborate with shops and things like that and show up at their space. You can see a lot of other small coffee businesses in town doing that. They'll get a cart. They'll start off with a cart, or they'll do a pop-up or pour-overs or something like that. Pinterest account, I can get in front of 20,000 people without a ton of problems. And then organic social impressions. If I had a follower account of 10,000, I could definitely be able to hit 12,000 on a monthly basis pretty easily. So we got Mike says he's phasing out the farmers market model. Congratulations, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to the people who are watching this today who are at their full-time job. I respect that because I know some of you are also on the clock at work, which I like that we're like secretly in here together. We won't tell anyone. And if I'm pulling
we're
up,
also at our full-time job, right?
Yeah, right. I just know some other people are at other jobs. What's funny is that because if someone walked by your desk and they saw a spreadsheet pulled up, they probably wouldn't care,
Mm-hmm.
It'd be okay.
Yeah.
So try to make it easy for you. So this is kind of our number down here at the bottom.
Wait, so how are you getting these numbers?
So these numbers I've gone into each.
Is it based on investment?
Platform, yeah, and I put together a budget that I thought made sense to at least experiment and test with. So this might be what I would call my June test. And you can change depending on how broad you target in Google. There's 1 million people who search. If you go to a keyword planner, if you go to Google Keyword Planner, you can estimate how many people you'll get in front of when you're targeting specific keywords. And each of these platforms has a little bit different version of finding a target audience and then figuring out what your budget is to get in front of them. So Facebook, as you go through it, it will actually tell you how much it will estimate its daily reach. So 90,000 is the kind of middle of the range. It could end up being, that's for $5 a day. That's for its minimum kind of thing, over the course of a month. So you can see over the course of a month, if I'm doing these things, I'm going to be hitting about 300,000 people, which is pretty far short of my total number of strangers. But I'm okay with that. That's just my next place that I'm going to get into. I should be thinking about, we just were hanging out in New York, right? And as we were talking through this content, and if you put a sign up on the side of a building on certain streets in New York, you might hit, 100,000 people a day driving by or walking by. So, sometimes there's ways to get in front of people or get your brand in front of people that aren't that difficult.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They're maybe less trackable, maybe less expensive. Some will be more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you could look at this number and be like, okay, I'm short almost 700,000 people. You could just pay more, but is that smart?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And really with the coffee business, I'm trying to build an email and text message list first and then sell to that list of people, not necessarily have strangers show up and buy the coffee directly online. Right. So my real conversion is I want to get people into those lists because people have a pretty high, my conversion rate once somebody on the list is a lot higher than 1%. And so I know if my conversion rate's a lot higher, get going from followers into sales, then the whole equation changes. And that's why I encourage all of you. Everyone in here is a pretty small business. I would definitely focus in on being really close, almost like intimate with your customers. You can think of it that way. Big, large brands who can put billboards up and can do a lot of other things advertising-wise, or don't have the ability that you have to make strong connections with your customers in just normal ways. Like we can think through our customers and think through what kind of memes or like dogs they like and send them funny text messages and just be like, just thinking of you, how's everything going? Like we can be that personal because our business is small. So you can think through all of that however you need to. So all that to say, these are places we're going to get in front of. So we spent some time going through audience. What kind of stuff do we need to be saying? We've spent some time through our advertising planning. What kind of places do we need to go say stuff to people? Mm-hmm. And now we're just going to get into content planning. And I really wanted to simplify this. I actually wanted to make another column because as we were talking, I thought about this.
What is it?
So I want to think through also the core message or vibe of each of these things that we're going to make. So let's think about our focus from our, so Kate asked for advertising. Are we targeting the first 2 or 3 levels of the funnel? Yeah, for advertising, I would be, in this example, Arter doesn't have much of a problem once somebody joins an email list selling something to them. Like I have all of the mechanics for all of that. What I would tell you to do as you think through your sales funnel is start with that first purchase. So when somebody goes from interested to their first purchase, what kind of content, materials, communication do you need to have for that? And then I'd work your way up the funnel from there. And once you're towards that strangers piece of the funnel, that very first level of the funnel, I would start to think through how can you pay to get in front of those people? Because once you have your conversion from interested to customer is pretty strong, and your conversion from an engaged person who cares about your brand into an interested person who's having buying behaviors. Once you can get those 2 things pretty locked down, now it's very much worth it to start paying strangers to get them, paying to get in front of strangers so that they can get into your funnel because you've got the rest of the mechanics of the funnel worked out. There's a number of people
versus like super heavy on top and then not really knowing.
Like if I asked you what your processes were to work with a new customer, a new client, or and you're like, well, I'm not really sure yet. And I was like, what kind of questions do people have before they hire you? What gets them over that hurdle of paying you for the first time? And you didn't know the answers to it yet. I would have you work there first. Mm-hmm. So when I'm talking about advertising, I'm talking about the rest of your funnel is tight, makes sense. You know how to operate it. Now, because you know how to operate it, you can throw money at it and you're going to benefit from that. A lot of retail businesses struggle with this where they will pay for advertising and they need more people in the door, but then they don't do a good job of merchandising or their customer service sucks. And so, you might be paying to get in front of other people, but you're not maximizing on that relationship once it starts anyways. Yeah. And the further down the funnel, you can increase your percentage. So if you can increase the number of times people hire you every year, if you can double that, or if you can increase it from once a year to 1.5 times a year on average, that makes every step of your funnel above it more valuable and acts kind of like a multiplier. And so I often, when we work with people on advertising or on consulting small businesses on how they spend their ads, they often don't have much of a system beyond, I'm going to put ads up and I hope someone takes the next steps to hire me. Mm-hmm. And so usually we start with closing the gaps in the rest of the funnel before we start putting advertising money at it. Sometimes you just need to put advertising money at it to get in front of strangers. We're working with 2 new businesses right now who have products who they kind of don't know what their conversion rate for their website is. They're brand new. They don't have, not very many people know they exist. And so we're not even really certain what to fix in the funnel yet. So we're spending advertising for a month or 2 just to throw traffic at the website and see what kind of conversion rate shows up. Hopefully that was helpful. Mm-hmm. Cool. So what I want you to do, what we all will end up doing, and what I'm doing with Arter right now, I hope you can tell, I'm using this Diamond membership as an excuse to work on my own business. So as we go through content planning, everyone in this first audience focus that we talked about how we're going to use video to show this off. So people who are interested, educational brewing methods. I also want to do some just really cool sort of 15-second Instagram type clips. So when I announce that coffee's for sale or something like that, I've got some very artistic. I'll explain this. So the Arter brand, I studied a bunch of other brands and I was looking at what causes people to pay a lot more money than something is worth in making it. So I looked at fragrance companies because they're disproportionately marked up. high-end chocolate companies, high-end jewelry companies, and then the very highest end kind of like streetwear apparel companies, because they all, a $700 pair of shoes probably doesn't cost that much more to make than a $100 pair of shoes. But the brand is different. And so I wanted to maximize that piece of it. So I was studying all that. And so what I've been looking to different types of brands like that. And I think there's a huge opportunity for me in the coffee world, because no one else does that. Everybody else is looking at every other coffee company. If you go to this, like every coffee Instagram account, there's like the same 50 pictures of that brand. So video clips, the core message being high end and exclusive and artistic. Exclusive. People who are good at spelling. So our downloadable guide, the core message is we're just helpful. So the due date for the downloadable guide, we'll make it, and we'll get into the easy thing. I can do that for me. Or Matt or developer. We'll get a developer to help with kind of execute that. In Shopify, or I could do it as its own standalone guide for sure. And who's that's going to be made by? We have a developer working on that. Allie's brother has been begging me to make some kind of videos for my coffee company. And so this would be a really good example of a project to give to him to let him kind of work on and improve his video skills. So because I have this core message down and I know who it's for, what you want to do from this standpoint, and we can go through and do the rest of it, but you get the sense of what we're doing, is that we need illustrations. We need a how to make illustration.
The board's kind of hard to type on, for what it's worth.
Yeah. We can have that would be July. We'll get a lot of stuff made in July. That sound good? Or in June, I should say.
Right.
We'll have Allie do that. I have a good designer who's on my team who tends to volunteer for my coffee business, which is fun. So all we're doing is we're going through all of the questions that need to be answered and the places that need to be answered. We also need a whole photo shoot. So we need a lot of photos, and I need a lot of copy written.
Like an event plan. Yeah.
Yep, and we need an event plan. I like it. So I'll find some Diamond member to help with event planning, because there's a number of event planners who hang out in here. Copy blurbs. And I want the event to be Instagrammable. So this would be enough probably, and if you're an event planner watching this would probably be enough for me to explain kind of my idea to it and then let you run with all of it. And then with photos, the core message, high end, just let it finish. And then copy blurbs. One of the things that we've been doing a lot with content as we're working on it for clients is just coming up with whether we're writing blurbs for ads or for website or for, whatever we're doing it for. We'll have copywriter Caitlin work on that. I'm actually pretty excited to just do this now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And do like a brunch coffee, maybe a coffee and chocolate thing.
You've been wanting to do that. With
puppies.
Puppy petting party.
Puppy petting chocolate party.
Okay. I'll be there.
And maybe we have like other products, like somebody else it could be like almost like a market thing.
Yeah.
Like bites.
Yeah.
And puppies.
Puppy bites.
Puppy bites.
Which don't hurt.
No, because they're
Depending
cute.
on the time.
So all that to say, now we have a list of things that need to be made. We've got due dates. We've got kind of the vibe, meaning behind all of them. And we know that it lines up with speaking to our audience where they are. We know that it's going to live in the places that get in front of the right type of people. So one of the things I've noticed in working with, I'm willing to spend a lot of money advertising on coffee because I have a whole team of people who can help me make content. They also get paid by the Wonder Jam, but yeah, so that's something that we have access to. Some of you are really capable of making your own content anyways. Some of you suck at photography, but you're great at copywriting, or you're really good at design and you really struggle with writing, or vice versa. And so I would say this is a great example. One of the things we talked about is collaboration. All of these things would be a great example of collaborating with another brand to put together something fun, knowing that this is going to last for a long time. It's also worth it to pay somebody to take care of these things for you, because they're going to be usable month after month after month. It's not just a one-time thing. But as I look through my planning, I'm going to spend more money on advertising than I normally would, and less money on making things than I normally would, because I have friends, family who are going to help me out at the beginning of this whole thing. But I don't have friends and family who will advertise for me, if that makes sense. Or we've done that already. Everybody has kind of like shared and talked about that. So you might be at a place where you don't want to spend any money on advertising, but you want to spend money on content creation. Just make sure that you have a plan for how it gets seen. From this, what I would get into, and you can go back to the very first module or capsule that we put out, is upgrading your visuals. I would start to put a mood board together for each of these things, and a list of specifics that you could hand to the people who are making things for you. So as I'm working through videos, I'm going to find other examples of things that I love. I'm going to explain the message and the brand and kind of what I want this to reflect. And I'm just going to hand that to a person who can make video and say, hey, I want you to do a lot better than I'm doing. Here's what I need it by. You tell me what we need to do to make this all work. And same thing true with the download guide. Same thing's true with illustrations, photos, copy, and events. Mm-hmm. So if you can put together everything, you'll be able to hand it off, collaborate with other people, and go focus on some other part of your business.
Yeah. And then I think they have access to branding on a budget, right?
Yeah.
So branding on a budget is one of the classes included in membership. And at the end of that class, we talk a lot about how to work with creative people for less than ideal budgets. Like if you know an intern or like a student who's working on things, a lot of this, the mood board is really key so that you can hand something over to someone who has a skill set that you don't have and get something that you really love. So, when you're not paying someone a lot, but you're giving the opportunity to someone to make an illustration for you, you don't get to be as high maintenance, hopefully. And so getting really clear on the style, or being really open and just saying like, make something awesome, so that you're not necessarily like forcing someone to do a ton of revisions when you don't have the budget for that.
So ultimately, once we get to this spot, we know the important things to make. Now we're going to go get into the making process. So that's scheduling out a production calendar. It's going through revisions, putting together mood boards, all of those things, knowing that it's going to come back and it fits into our purpose. It's done strategically. We're making things not just because we saw some other business saying like, oh, they did a really cool thing, we should do that too. We're like, no, we started focusing on our audience. What do they need? What do they care about? And then how can we get that in front of them? How can we be helpful? How can we inspire them? How can we be fun, cool, all of that, all of those things.
It's fun.
It's a good time. I'm going to, in the comments, I'll link to this, but I'll also link to this inside of Teachable, inside of the membership as well. So you can download a copy of this Google Sheet. If somebody we've had a couple of people do this who take really good notes from some of these webinars and then share them back with us. So if you're the type of person who makes this Google Sheet better, feel free to share it and I'll update that and we'll use all of it and I'll give you all the credit in the world. Because I also know there's a couple people in here who are very good at spreadsheets who will probably be like mad at me I could have automated something. So
you should see it if I tried making it.
Yeah, right. Anyways, if anybody has questions, we'll hang out here for a couple of minutes. Other than that, we've got the next capsule is dropping on the 1st. It's going to be all about ads and advertising. And analytics, we're going to talk a little bit about analytics and measuring things as well. That was a question that comes up often. These are all things that I would tell all of you not to pay a ton of attention to. It's more of a thing that you just need to get set up